This week, Monsanto gets a day in court at the International Court of Justice at The Hague, and ecocide might finally be considered an actual crime. In solidarity, March Against Monsanto wants you to join in wherever you are for World Food Day this Sunday. Plus, we'll speak with Tami Canal of March Against Monsanto about the GMO fight. And next up, here's a fucked fact about how we treat those responsible for 1 out of every 3 bites of food that we take. Second to last, the fight is the light. And finally, answer my call in beating a lame duck. From tweets to marching in the streets, this is Act Out. Welcome to Act Out. I'm Eleanor Goldfield, and this is your tipping point. This Saturday and Sunday, a citizen-driven tribunal will take agro-giant Monsanto to court. And not just any court, the International Court of Justice at The Hague in the Netherlands. Based on the decades-long harm caused to both people and planet, and the free rein that governments across the globe have given to this heinous corporation, a group of volunteer activists, experts, and lawyers have organized this tribunal to not only push for accountability, but for a legal precedent that would criminalize the destruction of planet for profit. Indeed, on the table this weekend will be the question of whether or not to add the crime of ecocide to the Rome Statute. And the Rome Statute is what dictates what the International Criminal Court can try. Currently, this includes genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, crimes of aggression, etc., etc. And you may recall from episode 55, Polly Higgins, the leading expert in ecocide, spoke to us about the significance of adding this crime to the framework of the ICC. And this weekend, it might just happen. So, if you need an ecocide recap, check out the site list in the description for a link to that interview. Now, as for this weekend, the tribunal will present judges with a testimony of 20 plaintiffs from South and North America, Europe, Africa, and Asia, who have been harmed by Monsanto. And based on this testimony, judges will answer 6 questions and offer up an advisory opinion that will serve as a basis for future lawsuits against Monsanto and other agribusiness corporations. And these 6 questions aren't just pulled from thin air. They are in fact based on laws and guidelines that are already recognized by the ICC, such as the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights and the Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. The 6 questions posed to the court are as follows. 1. Right to a healthy environment. Did the firm Monsanto violate by its activities the right to a safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable environment? 2. Right to food. Did the firm Monsanto violate by its activities the right to food? 3. Right to health. Did the firm Monsanto violate by its activities the right to the highest attainable standard of health? 4. Freedom of expression and academic research. Did the firm Monsanto violate the freedom indispensable for scientific research? 5. Complicity in war crimes. Is the firm Monsanto complicit in the commission of a war crime by providing materials to the United States Army in the context of Operation Ranch Hand, launched in Vietnam in 1962? 6. Ecocide. Could the past and present activities of Monsanto constitute a crime of ecocide, understood as causing serious damage or destroying the environment, so as to significantly and durably alter the global commons or ecosystem services upon which certain human groups rely? Now, you may be thinking to yourself, those are some powerful questions and good points, but that quote-unquote advisory opinion just keeps nagging at the back of my mind. What does it mean? Is this tribunal a toothless endeavor? Well, while the opinion of the court won't bring Monsanto to heel in terms of victim compensation or legally binding decisions, it will, as previously stated, consider whether ecocide should be added to the Rome Statute. Provide victims and their legal counsel the arguments and legal grounds for further lawsuits against Monsanto within their national jurisdictions, and highlight the need to hold transnational corporations accountable on all judicial levels, from local to international. And by holding this tribunal at The Hague, the crimes of companies like Monsanto will be placed in the appropriately global paradigm. Because Monsanto is not a U.S. problem, though it be a U.S. corporation. The aforementioned questions of the right to food and a healthy environment, these are questions that need to be asked and answered on a local and a global scale, particularly as climate change progresses with little to no legal barriers. Which is in turn why the question of ecocide is so important. This tribunal raises awareness and sets a precedent that cannot be ignored. Well, it can be, but whether or not it's ignored is really up to us, the people, as with anything else. And this is why the tribunal is going one step further and also organizing a People's Assembly at The Hague between Friday and Sunday to talk strategies in the people's fight against Big Ag. The assembly will include a press conference, speakers and panels, workshops, documentary screenings, and of course, a live stream from the tribunal proceedings next door. So to learn more about this, visit monsanto-tribunal.org. And for those who find The Hague rather geographically inconvenient, I have something for you as well. This Sunday, October 16th, March Against Monsanto will be holding events around the world for World Food Day, exposing Monsanto's crimes and pushing for food justice and awareness. Here again, the goal is to get the word out, to activate the dormant mounds of people that lie between our present corporate climate and corporate accountability. So to give us an inside perspective on this event, the GMO fight, and what you can do every day on a local scale, we sat down with Tami Canal from March Against Monsanto. Take a look. Talk about the science blackout with regards to studies on GMOs and Monsanto's drive to silence anti-GMO groups and individuals.
So, as far as the science blackout goes, we've all seen what Monsanto and their big bank account can do to silence any opposition to their studies. I mean, Gio Seralini is a classic example of, just a career of a widely respected scientist that was slammed, dragged through the mud, defamed. I mean, they've managed to just shred any credibility that the study had successfully, which is unfortunate, but that is the power Monsanto has. And with universities like Harvard and MIT joining in with, the poison peddlers, it's really disappointing because it's just further proof of how they're buying the public opinion and buying their pro stance, and they silence everything like the glyphosate studies that show infertility, sterility, cancer, Alzheimer's. The research is out there. It's just it's silenced, it's swept under the rug. And it's not just at the college level. They have something called the Monsanto Fund, and they're basically donating money to elementary schools, and these schools are taking the money and building gardens. And so these young kids are growing up equating Monsanto with sustainability. Ironic doesn't even begin to describe it. It's very unfortunate, and that's why we have to really keep up our public education campaign, because they are now attacking our youth with their propaganda.
Of course, just like the cigarette companies or fast food or any of that. So talk a little bit about this Harvard and MIT issue, because these are really scientifically respected institutions, and they're working with Monsanto on a new technology known as CRISPR. So first off, what is this technology? And you mentioned this a little bit, but what is the significance of Monsanto working with institutions that are respected in the scientific community?
Well, again, because now people are going to think this CRISPR technology is some wonderful thing. And basically, what it is a more precise way to gene edit. And it actually goes in and you can splice specific parts of the DNA. And, the pro crowd will have you believe it's some amazing revolutionary tool that's going to fix things like, for example, sickle cell anemia mutations. They are alleging that this technology could one day stop that mutation from happening. But what they're not saying is that we don't know what happens when you go in and alter the DNA. We don't know if fixing that mutation will create a susceptibility to, say, dengue or malaria. We don't know.
Right, and I mean, even if we just talk about like the idea of a technology that could, because when Monsanto first came out with, or when I first heard about the GMO idea many years ago, I was like, oh, something that could get rid of famine or that could, like drought-resistant crops, and it sounds really good, particularly when you look at where we're headed with climate change, even if we were to switch to 100% renewables tomorrow. But the main issue, as I understand it, with March Against Monsanto and the anti-GMO stance is not that this could never be useful. It's that it's not useful until we know that it won't hurt people and planet. Is that a correct idea?
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's a common misconception is that we're anti-GMO in the way that it's being used and applied currently. I'm not saying that, the science isn't potentially a good thing. I'm saying that to use pesticides to grow food in the quantity that we're growing them, that is not okay.
So talk about this Monsanto Tribunal that's taking place October 14th through 16th in The Hague. What is the significance of this tribunal? How did it come to be? And what does this say about the efficacy of groups like March Against Monsanto?
Well, social media has definitely allowed the global message to get out. The Organic Consumers Association and Dr. Vandana Shiva are actually the instigators of the tribunal, which is a citizen and activist campaign to call attention globally to what Monsanto has done for years, a century nearly, between DDT, the chemical dioxin that was used in Agent Orange. They want to the tribunal's purpose is to call on a global scale attention and accountability for what Monsanto has done.
And I think it's important that people also understand that Monsanto is not just, Franken tomato. It's PCBs that were used in factories and have poisoned, hundreds of towns and talk about it, but like just the scale of what we're looking at with Monsanto, it's not just like the weird
Right.
tomatoes.
No, it's they've robbed us of our soil diversity. They've robbed us of our seed sovereignty. They have displaced millions of farmers all over the world. It isn't just about a Franken tomato, like you said. I mean, DDT that wiped out an entire species of the brown pelicans. So, it's not just about food, it's what their chemicals are doing to our water supply. And generations later, like in Agent Orange, I work closely with many Agent Orange organizations raising awareness because now we see into the second and third generation, people are being born with horrific birth defects and cancers, and Monsanto just gets a free pass. And that just cannot stand.
And so before we continue with the tribunal conversation, I kind of wanted to get a handle on this because you said that you do work with Agent Orange groups. How did it come to pass that the same company that created Agent Orange got sovereignty over our food?
Well, Monsanto owns our government. Our politicians are nothing more than puppets for the biotech industry. We recently saw with the bill that passed that basically made the United States the first country to ban GMO labeling. It's disgusting the amount of money that just filters into the bank accounts of our representatives. It's unfathomable. So they're not doing right by us. They're doing the bidding of the biotech industry, and that's why there's no accountability. That's why the people that produced Agent Orange and DDT and PCBs are now in charge of our food supply, teaming up with Bayer to create this global monopoly on, pharmaceuticals and agriculture. It's sickening.
Let's talk about the actions that are happening on the 16th World Food Day.
Yes.
What is the goal of these coordinated actions around the world, and tell us a little bit about the concept behind World Food Day.
Okay, so World Food Day, like you said, is actually October 16th. So we're asking people, because not everyone can make it to The Hague, to be a community leader and, plant a seed that day. Go and, attend one of these festivals, educate your neighbors, encourage, maybe write a letter to your children's school encouraging them to not use Roundup. It doesn't really take a lot. And on that note, while I think it's great that March Against Monsanto does these global days of events, we do one in May as well as the October Food Day. I really encourage people to be proactive on a daily basis. It doesn't take a lot to make a difference in your community, and those little seeds add up to great things.
And of course, the idea that just local politics in general, I mean, you're talking about the U.S. government on a federal level being in bed with Monsanto, but if your local government's in bed with Monsanto, it's a lot easier to have a direct effect as opposed to trying to reach a congressman who's sitting here in D.C. and does not want to and can't hear you.
Yep, you can have a tangible effect on your community. I mean, you can really be a thorn in the side of your council members and all that. So it's a really good way to, grassroots. We got to start at the bottom and work our way up.
To get more info on the GMO fight, upcoming events, and news, visit marchagainstmonsanto.com. Now, moving on, sort of, let's talk bees and this week's Fucked Fact. 1 of every 3 bites of food eaten worldwide depends on pollinators, especially bees. And last week, 7 types of bees native to Hawaii became the first bees ever added to the U.S. federal list of endangered and threatened species. And you might respond by saying, but Eleanor, that means that they'll be protected now. Yeah, you see, the problem with just putting something on a list is, well, it's a list. And you can't just put something on an endangered list and hope real hard that whatever got it there in the first place will stop being so mean. Just look at polar bears. Indeed, in a press release celebrating the decision, Matthew Shepard, communications director for Xerces, the insect conservation organization that began the study and originally pushed for the yellow-faced bees to receive federal protection, in his press release, Shepard adds that, quote, unfortunately, the U.S. FWS has not designated any critical habitat areas of land of particular importance for the endangered bees. So in other words, there's no safe space for the bees, to use the parlance of our times. But what would a safe space even look like? Well, for one thing, it would be devoid of pesticides. Numerous studies done over several decades have produced a consensus that bee die-off, in particular colony collapse disorder, is strongly linked to the use of pesticides, specifically neonicotinoids. So much scientific consensus that back in 2013, the European Commission banned the use of 3 neonicotinoid pesticides in direct response to bee die-offs, stating that any seeds or soil treated with these pesticides will be, quote, prohibited for crops attractive to bees. Later that same year, a bit behind the common sense curve and always without spine, the EPA released an EPA bee advisory box, letting anyone who reads the label know that this product might kinda sorta kill some bees. So, I guess spray responsibly? A bit like those short taglines at the end of liquor commercials, please drink Jack Daniels responsibly. Only thing is, by definition, you can't drink Jack Daniels responsibly, and by definition, you can't fucking spray pesticides responsibly. Luckily for bees, and for those of us who like to eat food, at least in Minnesota, Governor Mark Dayton picked up where the spineless EPA left off and about a month ago announced the broadest restrictions on pesticide use to date in the U.S. The executive order covers 2 main areas. 1, that farmers must verify that they face, quote, an imminent threat of significant crop loss in order to use neonicotinoids, and 2, that the Minnesota Department of Agriculture pursue the creation of a new treated seed program that would provide the state with the authority to regulate seeds treated with pesticides, a power that currently rests with the aforementioned spineless EPA. This last part is particularly important because, as we have already established in this week's show and several others, corporations enjoy an embarrassingly little regulation with regards to effect on people and planet, and because treated seeds are the most common way in which neonicotinoids are used. Seed sovereignty, the struggle continues. And while Minnesota's decision is indeed strong and necessary, allow this depressive, broken record to remind you that it's up to us to push it to fruition. Same with the recent addition of yellow-faced bees to the endangered and threatened species list. Really, it's a fucked fact that they are even eligible to be on there in the first place. But whether they ever come off of it is up to us. And if you like food and want to join the fight for bees, there are a multitude of ways and organizations you can look into. Indeed, March Against Monsanto is one of them. But whatever course of action that you look into, I think that we can all sort of safely say that the fucksticks who put a measly piece of paper between big ag and the future of our food, or for that matter, allow billions of gallons of fracking wastewater to be dumped into the Gulf of Mexico, along with other egregious environmental oversights, are not the ones to directly lobby when it comes to environmental protection, making their name cause for this meme, followed by this sound.
You low-life scum.
So now that we've brought ourselves down with talk of ironically named protection agencies that don't protect and agricultural companies that poison our food, let's take a bit of a break to step out of line, into the light, and into the fight. I'm feeling this brash eloquence, like Grand Temple tenements. Through knowledge our betterment, jagged the truth, smoothly uncouth. Ignorance all that you have to lose, but how do you read between the lines they prescribe if all you've been taught is to walk in a line? Never to stray. If you feel lost, then take a knee, oh, just to pray. No protest, no contest, no question, just listen. The lesson is never to think, thereby lessen the chains that do hold you hold sway. This way or that way, as long as you stay in line and online, the left and right slide. Don't take to the streets and don't look between the lines. There's nothing for you, you have nothing to hide, but we do. This planned out malaise, a dumb fucked up haze, a truth shooting range where minds are just lined up and shot up with fake truths and false prophets, solutions that stack up on mounds of the lesser of two, but it doesn't make much difference to you. Which evil's taller when both of these towers have blocked out the sun, showered the sky with the rain from their guns, promised relief but gave it to none but the 1%? We repent for the sins of the needy while gods of the greedy smile and say, c'est la vie. You have the right to move left or right and believe that you are truly free. But to know wrong from right, to learn so you might, think that it's your right to fight, to better yourself through the truths that we shelve, to delve into ditches and see where we sell, justice and peace for 1,000,000 apiece, that is the nothing that we have to hide, and that is the nothing that you shouldn't mind. Stay in that line, slide left to right, forward is danger, don't be a game changer, don't play 'cause you'll lose. But the more that we slide, the higher the stacks of the evils do rise, the more that we lose by staying in line. Our lives trickle down and our hope will dry up. And then at the end, when we open our eyes, the darkness we feared will cover the sky. Our souls then will sink with a simple goodbye. The fight was the light. The fight is the light. Smoothly uncouth, jagged the truth, out of line. And now, back to the light, back to the fight, and on to the front lines. A quick heads up for those of you who are itching for a late fall, early winter trip and thought, hey, how about an activist getaway? I have just the thing for you. Remember way back when I talked about TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership? Well, like many stories that slide out of our narrow fields of view, the TPP is still very much a thing. And it will become even more of a thing after the elections this November. Yes, after the elections. That kind of no man's land, who gives a fuck about politics, leave me alone for the love of God time between Election Day and the first session of the new Congress is known as the lame duck session. Basically, it's 2 months where government gives even less of a shit about you than usual. The members who have been voted out already know that they're gonna leave, so they don't have to worry about whether a decision will affect whether they get reelected or not. And those who know that they won re-election feel comfortable in pulling the lever on something that they can't and won't be held accountable for until the next election cycle, by which time we the people will have forgotten that they voted to, for example, increase their pay while voting against a $15 minimum wage hike because we the people have the attention span of a brain-damaged goldfish. And while there is in fact a petition out there calling for an end to the lame duck session, it seems rather unlikely that we will see this demon duck waddle out of our damaged democracy anytime soon. Certainly not before this election cycle. And the reason that matters so much this year is because of TPP. Having been bombarded with negative press from 3 of the 4 top presidential candidates, Gary Johnson said that he would sign it, but then again, since he doesn't know what Aleppo is or the name of any world leaders, maybe he thinks that TPP is a fancy new toilet paper that he can draw on. Anyway, having been bombarded with negative press from not only presidential candidates, but also members of Congress and constituents on both sides of the aisle, from Tea Partiers to Green Partiers, TPP proponents are looking at this lame duck session as their last ray of corporate hope. And that is precisely why we have to activate and stand up to this atrocious trade deal, this literal corporate coup that holds every facet of our lives in its crosshairs. And that is not an exaggeration. If you need a recap or a rundown on how TPP is as evil as I'm describing it to be, check out episode 36 at bit.ly/YTPP sucks. And of course, we will also post that link in the description. But circling back to this activist getaway, Flush the TPP is organizing a mobilization in November, just after the elections, called the No Lame Duck Uprising. And we need all hands on deck. I cannot stress this enough, and I'm so dead serious about that if you go to register to come to DC, and that part is important, come to DC, if you register on Flush the TPP's website, I will literally give you a phone call to confirm and to say fuck yeah. Seriously, November 12th through 17th, check your calendar right now. And if there isn't anything vital on there, plan a trip. Plan a trip into DC in November to stand up to corporate power and for people power. Again, whether your issue is the environment, education, healthcare, the prison industrial complex, racism, sexism, food sovereignty, digital rights, human rights, labor issues, foreign policy, whatever it is, TPP will affect it. This is one of those times when the front lines need to mobilize together, when people with every progressive focus need to fix that focus right here on the TPP. So go to flushthetpp.org to register to come to DC, or go to the bit.ly link no TPP register, and I will see you soon. So now that everyone is on their phones and computers logging in to register for the No Lame Duck Uprising, we'll call it a show. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and as usual, please spread and share this with all of your friends, foes, and people you don't know. Especially that part about the No Lame Duck Uprising. Check out the last slide to see the sites mentioned in the show, like the TPP registration site. And be sure to follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube. From the Devil's Den, good night, and act out. And real quick, to keep independent, non-corporatized media like this show going, donate at Occupy.com/donate. If you'd like to donate directly to Act Out, visit Patreon.com/actout.